Hey, good morning, everybody. Good to be back with you again this morning. So yesterday, we got a little introduction to Moses and Moses seeing God at the burning bush. So, what was happening at the burning bush is that God was calling Moses to go back to Egypt and to deliver his people because they had spent hundreds of years in bondage and as slaves to the Egyptian people. And what happened? So, I'm going to back up a little bit. In chapter 2, verses 23 through 25, it says, "It happened in the process of time that the king of Egypt died. The children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning. God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and God looked upon the children of Israel, and he acknowledged them." I love that because here are these people. They're in a desperate time of their life. It says that they're groaning because of the oppression. They're in a difficult time, a time they don't understand, a time that is breaking their hearts and it's breaking their spirits, and they're crying out to God. And the verse 25 says that God saw them. He looked down upon them and he acknowledged them. When it says he acknowledged them, that it means that he was going to take action. He acknowledged that they were in a bad way, and he was about to intervene, and he was about to bring them deliverance. So if you skip down to chapter 3, starting in verse 7, God speaks to Moses out of this burning bush that we saw him at yesterday. And God says, "I have seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt. I've heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sorrows. I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land." God says, listen, I have seen and I have heard the oppression of my people, and I am about to intervene, and I am about to bring them up. Here's I guess, the main message that I want to make today. Yesterday it was God uses nobodies. Today is that God intervenes on behalf of his children when they are broken and hurting. God intervenes. He wants to intervene and make a change. I'm reminded of in Genesis chapter 16, it's the story of the birth of Ishmael when Abraham and Sarah had, God was delaying in answering their prayers for answering his promise for a child that the covenant would pass through. And so they took matters into their own hand. Abraham took Sarah's maidservant Hagar, made her pregnant, and obviously as soon as she got pregnant, Sarah despised her and began to treat her harshly. Hagar ran away, and she was out there in the wilderness just despondent and broken and didn't know what was going to happen. And God spoke to her out there, and he told her to go back. He said, "I'm going to be with you. Your son, I'm also going to make your son a great nation." He gave her promises, and he just encouraged her. He intervened in her life. And in fact, she named God at that time, "You are the God who sees," because God saw her in her despondency. God saw her in her brokenness. There's another passage in Mark chapter 6, and it starts, I think, in about verse 40. It's right after Jesus fed the 5,000. The disciples had gotten into the boat, and they were rowing across the lake, and Jesus had gone up into the mountain to pray, and a great storm had come upon them, and the scripture says that Jesus saw them straining at rowing because of the storm. He saw them, and that's when he comes to them walking on the water. So here's what I want you to know today. He is the God who sees. He is the God who acknowledges. And when you belong to him, at some point, he's going to intervene in your life, and he's going to either miraculously take you out of it, or he's going to give you the grace to walk through it. But God is going to be with you to hold your hand. So I don't really have a lot of time left, but Moses started making all these excuses. If you keep reading, the first thing he says is, "Who am I? Who am I?" And here's another thing. God is intervening in Moses' life too. Remember the story we told yesterday. And Moses, who am I? I'm just a nobody. I'm out here following a bunch of sheep around. I'm dusty, I'm old, I'm dirty, I'm filthy, I'm nasty. Who am I? And Jesus says God says it doesn't matter. I am choosing you. You're the one that I want. And then Moses says, well, what if I get there to Egypt and I tell them, God has sent me, the God of your fathers has sent me to deliver you. And they say, what is your name? What am I going to say? And that's that famous verse where he says, I am who I am. You tell them I am sent you. So you just remember, no matter what situation you're in, that I am Yahweh, Jehovah God, is looking over you. He hears your cry. And if you belong to him, he is going to acknowledge you. And at some point, he's going to intervene in your life, and he's going to give you grace or miraculous deliverance to get out of the situation. Just remember, Yahweh, Jehovah God, I am who I am. He is the God who intervenes. Love you guys. Get out there in faith today. Bless you. Bye.